The opinions and views expressed in the following presentation do not necessarily reflect those of GCR Progressive Internet Radio Management, staff, or our affiliates.
Toto? I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Welcome to Mo Banshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio on GCR Progressive Internet Radio. Here, rocking your world.
And welcome to Mo Banshee's Lair on GCR Internet Radio. Tonight we have a spectacular show for you with a very, very nice gentleman. This is going to be one of those great Mo Banshee moments where I bring you someone from the UFO community who is a witness to the Travis Walton abduction case. Steve per se is on. He's in the side waiting. You all know how it works with me. I do a little crazy but news. I want to welcome everybody listening, and the show will be on podcast, and it will be on YouTube, and you can download it from the podcast tomorrow when you're ready. And spread the word. It's fall. This is the last week of September, which September just kind of flew by like a train wreck. And it's getting cold out, and all my listeners know I worry about animals. Animals, they're not weatherproof, and I guess you can forgive someone who's ignorant, but I really don't know anybody anymore that's ignorant and doesn't understand. Animals need adequate shelter, adequate food, they need water, they need care. And if you're not going to do that for animals, call the ASPCA, call the Humane Society, and give them up. Don't torture an animal. I'm very upset. We've got like 4 dogs that I've had on Facebook that the SPCA and different shelters have let me know about that were literally starved to the brink of death. One dog was tortured and starved, and every bone in its body was broke, and it had to be euthanized. There's no excuse for this. Anybody who can do this should be in a cold room in hell for the rest of eternity. There's no excuse for it, and somebody knew that these people did this to this dog. So please, try to keep vigilant, watch out for dog fights, and you'll be surprised they're starting to resort to putting them in box trucks and drive around cities and towns and let the dogs kill each other because the men don't have the balls to fight each other, so they fight animals instead. That's all animal fighting animal is. Thank you, Steve. They just don't have the brass to stand up against a man and fight, so they use animals, and it's disgusting. And I hope that people start to realize it's going on a lot. And Craigslist, there's a petition to stop giving away animals on Craigslist because the animals on Craigslist are usually taken up by people who fight dogs. They're used as bait animals. Their dogs are taught to tear animals apart. Please, please, please be a voice for animals. Even if you don't like animals. My mother, she was Irish, and, we don't have money for animals, but you know what? That woman never, ever hurt an animal, never turned an animal out, and in the end, we ended up with every animal conceivable. If you don't want animals, that's one thing, but don't hurt them and don't allow people to hurt them. And please start teaching children about what they're doing so they stop. I mean, we're raising a generation of Jeffrey Dahmers. So, crazy but news. And, I'm always amazed at it, but religion ain't free for parishioners or the church. Austria's Roman Catholic Church has learned its lesson. Mass is okay. Mass texting is not okay. The diocese in southern city of Graz says it was found guilty of contriving Austria's telecommunications law by sending mass texts to parishioners who are overdue on membership fees. And in this mass text, everybody's name that is overdue was listed. So everybody in town knows who didn't pay their membership fees for the church. And so, this went out all over the place, and people went, what the heck, And anyway, the church is being fined $13,475 for complaints from 17,000 church members who were in arrears that received the text in everybody else's name. So the church, even though that may seem like a really good idea, it's probably not a good idea to mass text that everybody is in arrears in the church and list their names. This is a little bit disgusting and scaring. Naked and Scared. Haunted House welcomes new thrill seekers, a new attraction in Pennsylvania. Let me just double check to make sure everything's okay on the thing and everybody can hear me well. I guess everybody can hear me well. Anyway, this group, this Pennsylvania Scream Park theme is got a new attraction thing out, and what it is Shocktoberfest, a haunted Scream Park in Sinking Spring, PA, has added the attraction called Naked and Scared Challenge. And for $20, participants can experience the haunted house while being completely naked. And the idea is that they'll feel more vulnerable without clothing on. I don't know about vulnerable, but this is open to all kinds of problems that are going to come up. So this is going to be, after the first night, people, don't touch any of the walls, don't touch anything, just keep your hands to yourself because you don't know who's been through there before you. Anyway, the guy that's been running Shocktoberfest for 22 years got the idea when he saw 4 teenagers watching the Discovery Channel show Naked and Afraid, where they put a man and a woman together to survive for 21 days with no food, water, or clothes. And he said people were genuinely scared, so he thought this would be a really good idea. His wife hates the idea, but he says he's going to keep going at it because most of the husbands he's talked to think it's great. Sure, they're going to get a look at, naked women, I think it's disgusting, and I guess the further we get along, the more backwards we become. What a bummer. Flushable wipes. Who hasn't been told, flushable wipes, use them and throw them down, it's sanitary, throw them in the garbage? Well, now, all over the entire country of the United States, these flushable wipes are being blamed for creating clogs and backup systems in all the source systems. They've been costing hundreds and millions of dollars all over the country because they have to unclog the pipes with pumps, and they sometimes have to go in and upgrade the pipes. So they're saying no more. Don't be, using this. In London, SOAR officials reported removing a 15-ton bus-sized lump of wrongly flush grease and wet wipes, dubbed Flatberg. Don't ask me what that is, Flatberg. But anyway, they had to remove this out of the pipes. So now everybody is saying, please stop. Throw them in the garbage. Get one of those little doggy bags, that you use for your dog, and throw them in that. But please do not throw them in the toilet. And you know what's going to happen with the doggy bags. They're going to go in the waters, and fish are going to swallow them, and they're going to choke fish and sharks and porpoises and everything else to death. So my answer to this entire problem is just make it illegal to have these wipes, and call it good. So that's my answer to this entire thing. I thought they were a bad idea when they came out because of toilets, and it seems they're even worse than I thought they were going to be. A man shot to internet fame several years ago by appearing on Today to discuss a condition that turned him permanently blue. Paul Harrison, 62 years old, passed away Monday in a Washington state hospital. He was admitted last week for a heart attack. Evidently, 15 years ago, he started using this special silver paint preparation to treat a skin condition, and he was drinking a silver solution, a product consisting of silver particles suspended in liquid, and it permanently turned him blue. You can actually find his picture on the internet. Since he turned blue, he became a recluse. He was hiding because people were looking at him and calling him Papa Smurf. He said he didn't mind when children walked up and called him Papa Smurf because he had the big bushy beard and all, but he didn't appreciate it when adults did it. And anyway, he ended up using, just staying in his house and not bothering with anybody much. But he just died, so they called him the Blue Man, and he just passed away. Bonkers for conkers. England always amazes me. There's the best thing to parking, costing peanuts, is you pay your parking coins in chestnuts. A company that runs parking lots in England, Leeds and Manchester, is temporarily letting drivers pay with dark brown seeds that fall from the horse chestnut tree each autumn. You can actually put the seeds in the little meter on the street, and they were going to stop it Thursday, but now they think they're going to keep it up. And the company is saying that they want to raise awareness about carbon emissions from automobiles, and it plans to sponsor a forest to help offset carbon emissions. Don't ask me what these seeds have to do with carbon emission. I really have no clue. I don't know. Maybe they're going to feed a bunch of squirrels with them. I really don't know what they're going to do with them. But somehow they figure if they collect all these seeds, it'll help the environment. And this is kind of like, it was serious when it happened in New Jersey and New York, but sightings of a fighter jet over New Jersey and New York lit up the social media Monday afternoon. Anybody who's not in the clue, we have the UN meeting all week long. Bridges have been shut down. I had to go to a wake for one of my team. His father passed away, and our condolences to Scott Mara. God bless you. Your father was a great man. But we went in there, and we had to get out before the bridges shut down, because once you get out of the town, you can't get back in, and they're searching everybody. So anyway, this fighter jet starts cruising all over the place on Monday, and they finally sent up a bunch of F-16s, and they intercepted 3 small planes and started bringing them down. And they said there was no bad intent. Nobody was going to do anything, but they just did it to be safe. And it was a great air show. Everybody was watching these planes all over the place, waiting for something to happen. And thank God nothing happened. And let's see. A few weeks ago, I warned everybody about the testicle-eating fish in Denmark. Well, it's in New Jersey, 10 miles from New York on our side. Man was a retired bus driver, Tom Boylan, was fishing, and he hooked a 10-inch long pacu, and they are related to the piranha. They are from the Amazon, and somehow they got into our waters. And the fish are known to make mistakes when people's testicles are in waters. They look like tree nuts, and 2 guys in New Guinea have died from blood loss after one of these little fish took their boys off. So no fun houses or scare houses in the nude, and no swimming in the nude anymore. We're going to stop all nudity. If you're going to be nude, do it in your bedroom where none of us have to be exposed to it. But that's the crazy button. That's the crazy butt news. Our guest tonight has the dubious honor of being a witness to Travis Walton's UFO abduction event. Steve Persay, welcome to the lair.
Thank you. My name is Steve Pierce. Thank you
Pierce.
for having me.
Sorry, Pierce. Okay.
It's Pierce.
Okay,
Pierce,
Steve
like a Pierce.
Okay. You like that news, crazy but news, right? It's always something. Do you swim in the riverbeds?
It's your show. It's your show.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's not a good idea, guy. Everybody's got to buy trunks, man. If they got teeth that can break a nut open, your boys are in big trouble, gentlemen. You were part of the crew that was clearing woods in Arizona with Travis Walton. You were the baby.
You got his name right.
And when I say, yeah, I've had him on before. Hey, it's 9:00 at night. And I just read some really crazy news. Anyway, you were a part of it. You were the youngest gentleman on it. And I want to say Kitty because to me, you were, what, 17, 18 years old when this happened?
Yeah, I was 17, yes.
Oh, you were a baby. In my book, that's a baby. And I guess, it's something that has never ended for any of you, really. Even those of you who have opted to stay quiet about it and try to leave it behind, this story kind of keeps following you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it keeps following me. I try to get out and they just pull me right back in.
Yeah. I always think of that song, Gordon Lightfoot, the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, where he says, "Does anybody know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours?" And I mean, yes,
that's strange because you mentioned that song. That happened the day we took the polygraph test.
Really?
Yeah, it sunk the day we took the polygraph test.
You're sitting there and you're going through this, and I think time kind of becomes subjective when you're in the middle of something like this, and then when it's done, you're trying to remember it all, and it's like a blur. It's kind of like your wedding. You work up for it, and when you're done, you don't remember any of it. You got to watch the videos, How do you feel about it when you think back on it? Do you sit there and think, oh my God, I wish I had a video because even I don't believe what happened that night?
When I think about it, it all comes back to me like it happened yesterday. So, it's in my head. I can watch something and like I can hear that song that you just mentioned. I can hear that song that happened the day that we took the polygraph test, and I can hear the song, the guy that sings it. I can hear that song, and it all comes back to me.
Wow! So that was a song playing on the radio when this all was going on. Let's step back.
No,
a bit.
It was the day that they sunk. That ship sunk the same day we took the polygraph.
Oh, they sunk. Okay, right. Okay. So, you see, I'm a great believer that music, things like that will bring back memories. They'll trigger memories that, we've put far back in a drawer someplace hoping never to remember, and then suddenly a smell, a sound, a song, something will trigger it all. And it's like post-traumatic stress. I asked Travis about it, and he said he dealt with post-traumatic stress for a long time. Do you feel you've dealt with post-traumatic stress from this?
They say I have, but I don't know. I've lived with this all my life, so it's part of my life. It ain't like, it happened when I was an adult. It happened when I was a kid, so it's been in my whole entire life.
Yeah.
So, you just learn how to deal with things.
Yeah, you have to. And I said that earlier today to somebody. I says, I've had a lot of lousy things happen to me in my life, and I'm not going to talk about them, but I prefer to live my life as not a victim of it. You just learn to deal with it, and you learn that bad things happen to people, and you just got to get on with your life. And unfortunately, you guys You've really had, it just keeps getting dredged up and thrown in your faces again. You explain what happened for people who haven't heard you talk about this before. I know that you stopped giving interviews, and I am so honored that you agreed to come on the show and talk about this, because I know this is a lousy memory, and it's not something you guys want to keep reliving, but it is one of two of the biggest cases in UFO abduction besides the Betty and Barney Hill. So, you know,
I stopped doing, I stopped talking about it for 35 years, and then a couple years ago I came back out and started talking about it because I knew they made a movie in '93. I was in a truck stop, and I was a long-haul truck driver for 20-something years, and I was in a truck stop and getting fuel, and I went to pay for the fuel, and I went to the restroom, and I went to the TV room, and there was Travis Walton on HBO talking about the movie Fire in the Sky, and that's how I knew they made a movie. I still didn't watch it until 2008, 2009. I broke my neck, and I was home recovering from surgery, and me and my daughter were sitting there watching it, and I told her Henry Thomas is that, you know, Henry Thomas is a little boy in E.T. He plays the boy in E.T. and he's playing my part in the movie. And I told her that's me. He's playing me. And she goes, well, how come they changed your name? And I said, I don't know why they changed my name. So I got a hold of Travis because she wanted me to prove it. You know, little kids are. They were, well, this is you. You know, prove it to me. And so I got a hold of Travis. And then he sent my daughter a book and poster and stuff and signed everything. And then she was telling me, you know, it's important for me to get out there and start talking about this. And that's one of the reasons I came out and started talking about it. And the other reason is when I got into this, after I broke my neck, getting on the internet and stuff, and I was seeing articles that the people said they talked to me back then, and that's not true. I only did one interview the whole time that this was happening back in the 70s. I was the one that was always hiding. Like the day that, I did an interview for National Star a few months after this, and without following July, and they had me trapped in a hospital when my ex-wife was having her son, and I had to do the interview. And next month when it came out, National Star did it, and next month when it came out, it made us look like we were lying, so I refused to do any more interviews, and I didn't do no interviews for 35 years.
Right. Yeah, you know, I read it all. I read the book. I've read all the skeptics and everything. I'm on the fence. You know, yes, a skeptic. I believe honestly they're looking for that one story that there are no holes that they could say, oh my God, this is the real thing, because they really do want to believe, but they can become such a pain in the can by trying to disprove it. You've been offered money to say it was all a hoax.
I was offered money by Philip Glass, $10,000 to say it was a hoax.
Yeah, and he just kept harassing you to the point where you were almost running from this jerk, right?
Actually, he was a nice guy. Until you started talking about Travis, and then he got really upset when you started talking about, you know, Travis Walton, because them two didn't get along. After, you want me to tell the story first and then get into that, or you want me to
go right ahead? Go tell the story. Go tell the story.
Okay.
And we're going to be taking the breaks a little bit slow, you know, a little bit off for the commercials and all, because I want him to be able to tell his story and get it all out there, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll take questions. And yes, Spooky, just hang on to that question, and we'll get to that after he's done telling the story. So go ahead and start telling the story, Steve.
Okay, we were loaded up that day, and we were taking off, and it was getting dark, so we loaded up and we were in the truck, and there was 7 of us in a 2-seated pickup truck. There was 3 in the front seat, 4 in the back. In the front seat, in the shotgun side, was Travis. Then in the middle was Kenny Peterson, and then Mike Rogers was driving. In the back seat, behind Travis, on the shotgun side, was Alan Dallas. And then me, then John Goulet, and then Dwayne Smith was all the way to the far left. And we're going down the road a little bit. It's not even a road. We wasn't even to the main dirt road yet. And we seen this bright office over to the right, and we couldn't, tell what it was. And someone said it looked like the moon, and somebody else said, the moon's over there. There's the moon, so we knew it wasn't the moon. And someone said maybe it's an airplane wreck, and John Goulet said, no, it's not an airplane wreck. I was in the Navy. I know what an airplane wreck looks like, and it's not no airplane wreck. And well, we couldn't figure out what it was, and we make this little turn and curve, and it's sitting there. It's just hovering right there in front of us, and Alan Dallas hits the floorboard, and then he gets back up, and then when he gets back up, he's still on the floorboard, but I scoot all the way over next to the window, so I have a really good view. And so this UFO is just hovering in the air, and it's not moving. It's beautiful. I mean, it's got a bright white to it, and you can see the window frames in the on the ship. And so we stopped, and Travis gets out, and it looks like to me Travis was like in a trance. He wasn't acting like Travis. He just got out of the truck and started walking, like not exactly up to it, but in like an angle up to it. And he everybody's hollering for him to come back, and he kind of like ducks down in front of these dead trees. And when he stands back up, this thing starts rocking back and forth, and it starts getting brighter and brighter, and this blue screen light comes out, and well, there was a beeping noise, and then there was a high pitched noise, and then when the high pitched noise, then the bluish light came out and zapped him in the chest. He goes back about 15 feet, hits the ground, kind of bounces a little bit, and just lays there. And then I holler out, they got him. And as soon as I said they got him, Mike Rogers takes off, and we leave him. Well, we go down a little bit, and we're almost to the main dirt road. And Kenny Peterson gets him to stop, and we all get out and trying to figure out what to do. And Dwayne, I think it was Dwayne Smith, said something like, he's disintegrated. And I said, no, I seen him hit the ground. I know he's there. And I was thinking he was dead, but then I knew his body was there. And then, in the movie, it shows that Mike Rogers went back by himself, but that's not true. They would have been a murder that night. But anyway, we all get back in the truck, and we go back, and we're looking for him. We get there, and we look for him. We got one flashlight, and we can't find him. And we saw it when we get out. We saw it take off. We could see a light flash. When we first got out, when we first took off, and we got out, when we were talking about going back, we saw a white flash that went like northeast into the sky. So we figured it was gone, and we figured Travis was there. So we went back, and we all got back in that truck, because everybody was going to stay where that truck went. Wherever that truck went, we were going to stay with it until we got into town. And so we're looking for him with one flashlight, and we can't find him. We're hollering his name and everything. And at first, I wasn't for sure we was at the right place, because it was dark. And when it gets dark out there, it's dark. And so I looked for the tire marks, and there was the tire marks I could see the way where Mike took off, because Mike never missed a gear when he took off, and so now we're trying to figure out. Mike was really upset, and he falls down to his knees, and saying, look what I've done. I left my best friend behind, and he was really upset over that by leaving Travis behind. And then we're trying to figure out what should we do now? Should we go into town and get help, or call the cops? And and then me and Alan Dallas, we were against calling the cops, and because we knew they weren't going to believe us. And Kenny Peterson and John Gillette, this is the right thing to do. We gotta call the cops. So we get into Heber, and there's this phone substation with 2 telephones on the side of the building, and so Mike's still upset. So Kenny Peterson calls and says that we got a missing person. So he didn't tell him exactly what happened. We just got a missing person. So then we drove a little bit farther into Heber, a couple blocks on the main highway there, and waited at a gas station. I think about 3 cops showed up. I can't remember all the names, but Gillespie was the last one to show up. And Sheriff Gillespie showed up, and we told him the story, what happened and everything, and he didn't believe us. He still doesn't believe us. You ever watch Paranormal Witness, the Sci-Fi channel, where we were on there last year, and he was on there with us, and he even said he didn't believe us. He still doesn't believe us, but he's looking around for beer cans and everything, and he can't find anything. He thinks we're partying or something, and then he gets each one of us alone and talks to us, and then finally he says, well, Mike Rogers has to go back because he's the crew boss, and I want 2 of the guys to go back with me. So Alan Dallas and Kenny Peterson went back. Me, Mike Rogers, John Gillette, and Dwayne Smith, we went back to Snowflake. Well, they went out there and looked for him. They couldn't find him. And the next morning, they're at my house talking to my mom on the front porch, and they're talking about getting a posse out there. They're getting a posse, and they, everybody's going to go out there with them. And so I snuck out the back door, and I hid all day. I did a lot of hiding after that, and I was at a girlfriend's house, and her mom came home for lunch and said that, you got to stay away from that Pierce boy because the whole town thinks they killed Travis. It's all over town by the next day. And so she left, and I figured she was going to make me leave, but she let me stay. And then later on that night, I went back home, and my mom said they came by and said that they still hadn't found Travis. Well, like the second day, the following day, he was gone. A sheriff named Flake, no, he's not a sheriff, he was a city cop of Snowflake. He saw me walking around, and I was trying to hide from everybody, and he gets me in the back of the pickup, back of the cop car, and I'm sitting in the back of the cop car with him, and he tells me, he says, in the state of Arizona, we don't need a body conviction for murder. And if you did not commit this murder, and you knew about it, and you saw it happen, you were just as guilty as the person who did the murder. So he's trying to tell me to confess up, and it'd be easier on you if I confess it now and everything. And I told him, we were telling the truth, so he told me, he said, well, if you decide to tell the truth, give me a call and I'll try to help you. And so he lets me out and everything. And then that day or the following day, they were talking about taking a polygraph test, and Alan Dallas's mom was telling us that they were going to set this polygraph test up and make us all look like we were guilty. So on the 5th day, we had to go to Holbrook with the county, county sheriff's department was at, and went in there, and I didn't want to do it because I was afraid we was going to flunk it, you know. So I tried to sneak out the back door again, and they caught me and they put me in my mom's car. And my mom took me to Holbrook, and because I was a minor, she had to be there. And we get there, and there's all kinds of news reporters there, and I mean there was a lot of people out there in that courtyard, and so we go in there and. Gillespie's talking to us, and then the guy that took the polygraph test, he came out there and he was telling us what was going to be like and everything, and that's when we started realizing, this is about murder, it's not about a missing person. And then a little bit later, they came back in there and they said, well, we'll take the quiet one first, and because I wasn't saying a word because, my daddy always taught me, when it comes to the cops, keep your mouth shut. So I wasn't saying nothing. And so they decided to take me first. They figured that I would crack under the pressure. That I would even crack before I even, started taking the polygraph test. Well, I took the polygraph test. It took about 2 hours apiece, and then they kept us separated. And, and people tell me, the reason you passed the polygraph test because Travis wasn't dead. But if they read the polygraph test, it also says that, did you actually see a UFO? And we passed it. We all passed it except for Alan Dallas, and Alan Dallas didn't send us his polygraph test because he was asking, did you kill Travis? And he said, well, what kind of questions are these? And he took off he took everything off and he refused to take the polygraph test. And, but in 93, Alan Dallas, before he died, he died a couple of years ago, but in 93, he took a polygraph test and he passed it from the same guy. So he did pass the polygraph test later, but he refused to take one that day because of the questions they were asking us. Well, we all passed the polygraph test, and Gillespie couldn't believe it. Because if we would have flunked it, we would have never left that jailhouse. They would have locked us up until, So we go home, and my mom goes home, and the next morning, Travis comes back, but I didn't know he was back until that following night. I was still hiding, and I came home, and Mom says he's in Tucson in the hospital. But actually, I found out years later he wasn't actually in Tucson in the hospital. He was at his brother's house in Phoenix, Arizona. And so he's back, and we didn't see him for maybe, 3 weeks after that. And we all met at Mike's house, and he told us the story, and, it was kind of hard to listen to. And his eyes, I'll never forget his eyes. His eyes were really different when I saw him. And, well, after that, I tried to stay away from them all because, after it happened, it turned into a big joke. Everybody thought we were lying or crazy, So so I was trying to stay away from everybody, and I got married that following February, and I didn't invite none of them to the wedding because I was trying to stay away from them. Well, I moved to Taylor, the town next to Snowflake, and my ex-wife heard a car coming down the road because we live on a dirt road, so we could see, we could hear the cars coming, and she goes, Jim Click's coming down the road. He's a Taylor cop, and she goes, well, what'd you do this time? Because he's pulling into the house and everything, and he comes to the door, and he tells me, Jim Click tells me, he says, Philip Prastis called me and told me that he'd give you $10,000 if you said, this is a hoax. And at the time, I just blew it off, and I always thought Philip Prastis was a news reporter. I always thought that until I started talking to Travis again a few years ago, and then I learned some more things about Philip Prastis. But anyway, I just blew it off at the time, and I moved back to Texas where I was born, and he found out the phone number there, and he started calling me there, telling me to give me this money to say it's a hoax and all this, and so one time I hung up the phone, and I told my ex-wife, I'm going to go ahead and take this money because my mom doesn't believe it. She thinks it's a hoax, and my family all, believes this didn't really happen. And then she asked me, she goes, well, you really believe this really happened? And I go, I really believe it. It really happened. I saw it, so.
Right.
I saw the first part. I know this is true. She says, well, you really shouldn't sell out for the money, because I was mad at Mike, because Mike hadn't paid me. He still hasn't paid me, and I was mad at Mike, so I was going to go ahead and, take the money just to piss him off. And the next time he called, my wife was home, and so I told him, I said, okay. And Philip Glass was the only person I ever said it was hoax to, because I wanted the money. Then I asked him, well, how do I get the money? Well, he flew out to Texas, and we met at a restaurant, and we talked for a while, and he told me, you gotta go, you gotta go back to Arizona. You gotta go back to Arizona and find a generator, find some kind of proof, Well, we went our separate ways after that, and a couple nights later, I told my wife what I did, and she says, well, if you take this money, I'm not going to spend it. This is not right. You should just let it go. Your day will come. And so I stopped taking his phone calls again. Then we moved to Utah right after that, and I got a phone call at job one day saying that somebody wanted to talk to me about an incident in Arizona, so I figured it was him. I don't know if that was really him or not. And then after that, I moved back to Arizona. This is like the second year after it happened. I moved back to Arizona to Phoenix, and I got divorced, and I was staying at my brother's house, and Philip Glass was calling my sister-in-law and telling my sister-in-law, tell Steve I'd give him this money, And so eventually I just took off, and nobody knew where I was at for a long time except my mom. And then I became a truck driver and went on the road and stayed away from it for a long time. Stayed away from it.
Yeah, your saving grace was in the movie. You didn't have the same name. They couldn't
they changed my name in the movie. Travis said they couldn't find us, and so they had to change their name. They took one guy, Dwayne Smith. They took him completely out of the movie. There's one person missing in the movie. There's only 6 of them in the truck in the movie. They changed Kenny Peterson's name. They changed John Gillette's name. So they changed some of our names.
We're going to go to break, and then when we come back, we're going to ask some questions, and I'll give you a heads up during the commercial on one of them already, because we all know when they make movies, everything gets they screw everything up. They do what they pretty much want to do. And we're going to be right back, and we're talking to Steve Pierce about the Travis Walton abduction case. And these guys literally were being accused of murder. It wasn't a ha, isn't this fun situation. This was a serious situation where these guys were really starting to worry for their own safety. And we'll be right back. Oops, wait a minute.
This is Michelle Tomlinson, the Scream Queen, and I listen to GameCon Radio. Why? Because it rocks.
Welcome back to Mo Banshee's Lair on GCR Internet Radio. Our guest is Steve Pierce, and he was working with Travis Walton the night that Travis was abducted by a UFO. Steve and his comrades, his co-workers, were accused of murder at first. It became a national-wide story that this kid was missing, and that they were looking for his body, and the sheriff kind of just was dead set on they murdered him, and that's where he was going. He was not entertaining that Travis had been taken by a UFO, as the boys had all said, recently, a few years ago, the sheriff Gillespie still maintained that he knows the boys were lying, but nobody has ever come back and said that anybody was lying. So a couple of comments that were made in the chat was that the movie, of course, depicted things wrong. They got some things wrong, and that's what Hollywood does. You've seen the picture. I don't know how can you watch that movie, because I remember Vietnam, and there's really only one movie I can tolerate maybe once a year, and that's The Green Beret. But I can't watch Vietnam movies. It's too personal. It's how can you sit and watch that movie?
The first time I watched it, I couldn't watch it all the way through. It kind of pissed me off because it was all wrong. I've only watched the movie one time all the way through it, and because people kept asking me questions about it, so I had to sit down and watch the whole thing.
Yeah, were you, did you sit there, because I know I probably would have sat there and says, oh, what the beep, and that's beep, and what the beep, because when I see them
doing a lot of beeping.
Things... There you go. Okay, that answers that, because they take a lot of license. Even Travis said the book, you've got to read the book. He says, I get a lot of skeptics coming at me, and they've never read the book. They only know what other skeptics have said, this is all hogwash, and what the movie is. And they never actually read the book. Have you read his book?
Have I read his book?
Yeah.
I've read parts of it. I've never read the whole thing all the way through. I've got a couple of them.
Yeah,
but
I
know the story.
Yeah. Yeah, you know the story. During the break, we got a question from England, and I promised I would ask. Spooky UK is asking, since Class's death, someone has offered you money again to say it was all a hoax?
I don't know how I knew about that, but yes, yeah, they have.
Yeah. And I guess it just
Travis was even kind of worried about it a while back, that I was going to take some money they offered me to say it was a hoax, but, this is true. This really happened. Everybody knows that me and Travis hadn't got along for 4 years, but I've got his back on this one. This really happened. This really is true. It really happened. So I always have Travis's back on this.
That's excellent, because he's a nice guy. I've talked to him, and he's a nice guy. And I asked him this question, and I told you I was going to ask this, but you already volunteered it. But would you change anything? I mean, it was a lousy thing that happened, and it threw your lives into a spotlight that probably none of you were prepared for. But you said to me, it's been a good life, I wouldn't change a thing.
No, I would never change a thing. I've had a good life. I could see Travis getting zapped every day now.
And yes, this is Mark Stublarek is in the chat, and he says, I'm wondering if anything else paranormal ever happened to Steve. And that, of course, was the next question I was going to ask you, as you know. You said you've had things happen before and after.
Yes.
Could you tell us about it?
That'd have to be on another show. you can talk about my book, and I have a book out, and that has to be another show.
Oh, okay.
Before this happened, I lived outside of Snowflake, and back then they didn't have any electricity out there, and you lived out, you had to live, take a shower underneath the windmill, and get your own firewood to cook, wood stove and stuff, because they had no electricity out there, no gas or nothing. So when it got dark, it really got dark, and then at nighttime there was a mountain on the side of us, well, out back of us, and you could see these lights just flying around all over this hill, it was just, and there wasn't car lights because there was no road up there, and there's other people that live in Snowflake that have seen these, we sit there and watch them fly around and stuff. So, and then I've had an uncle that passed away a while back. He and his wife actually had an incident with a UFO right after this happened, and it was right in their face, so there's quite a few people in Snowflake that have seen this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. What is your book that's out, and where can people find it?
It's called Broken Silence, One Man's Journey, and I had it out for a while, but we're redoing it. So it'll be out in a couple months.
Mm-hmm. And do you have your own site that people can find you at?
You could. My email is Steve, STEVE Pierce, PIERCE, Steve.Pierce at hotmail.com, and you can email me, and I'll tell you how to get a book.
Mm-hmm.
I got a publisher. A publisher picked my book up, so he wants to redo the book, and we're going to redo some things, and then it's going to be sold through a publisher.
When I had Travis on, and I know you're the witness, but I'd just like to bat this idea around because you obviously must have heard that what condition he was in when he came back. But he said, he was gone for the 5 days, and it occurred to me that that's 3 to 5 days is the average hospital stay back then. Unless something was really, really bad. And I said, do you think it's not possible that maybe when this craft was getting ready to take off or get out of Dodge because you guys all came upon it, maybe somehow when they hit this thruster or whatever, he got hurt, and just like humans, okay, Harold, you hit the dog, go see if it's alive, go see what we can do, and they finally said, oh, shite, we hit a human, we got to figure out is it alive, did we mess it up, what did we do?
Yeah, and Travis believes this was an ambulance call, too. I don't believe that. I don't believe it was an ambulance call. We saw it for 5 minutes. I mean, why did it take off as soon as they heard us coming? Because it had to hear the chainsaw. We were that close to it. It had to hear the chainsaws. It had to hear that raggedy old truck going down this wannabe dirt road, so, and then we were in front of it for a long time, so we saw this for like 5 minutes. So why would they wait 5 minutes and then take off? It doesn't make any sense. I do not believe this was an ambulance call. Huh?
I don't know. I look at it this way when I'm looking at something going, there's something you don't see every day. Look at 5 humans, and they're standing there staring at us. And they're kind of staring at you going, I don't know. Well, 7, I don't know. Well, what are they looking at? I don't know. The same thing you were doing, kind of, curiosity. I don't care what it is. Curiosity killed the cat. And maybe it was just you both, all the parties got caught with their pants down, and then an accident happened. I don't know, because it seems to me they kept him, and maybe they took care of him, and then they said, okay, now put it back where you found it and watch where you're driving from now on, and I really do think that maybe that's it. Your town, you
never convinced me that's what happened. I was there. I saw what happened. Half the people who were with me believed this had to do with, he was in a trance, so, no, I'm not buying it. I'll stick with that story till the day I die. And I say this in front of Travis, so, he's got his story, he believes what he believes, and I believe what I believe.
Well, the difference is you saw what happened to him, and he experienced it. And
well, Travis didn't see that beam hitting. There's no way Travis saw that beam.
Yep.
So I'm not buying it. I mean, you can talk all night. But
yeah, that's the thing. When there was this study, and they rigged up this field, and they took these people on a walk through the field, and it was the same for everybody, but every one of the people had a different account. When somebody's hit with that kind of a force field, whatever they hit them with, I can only go from past experience. You don't always remember everything that happened to you. I mean, I have a son with a permanent brain damage from Iraq, and he will tell you, I remember, but they told me, the neurologist told me there's no way he can remember that. There's just no way he can really remember what happened to him. And maybe, somehow Travis is filling in the gaps with something that he's comfortable with?
I don't know. I can only say what I saw, and I don't believe it was an ambulance call. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, let's get on with more. You, after this happened, you ended up moving around a lot to get away from it.
I've been moving all my life.
Yeah.
I can't stay in one place very long.
It had to take its toll on relationships. Do you? I asked Travis, have you been back there since?
Me and Travis was back there together about a month ago.
Really? Because he said he won't go there at night.
Well, that's Travis. At first I was scared of the woods. 2 summers ago, after I broke my neck, I'm retired now, and I tried to sleep in the woods, and I couldn't sleep in the woods. I got the tent all set up and everything, and it got dark, and then after it got about 11 o'clock, I got back in the pickup and drove into the nearest little town and slept underneath the light. And I tried this 3 times, and the third time I tried it a couple summers ago. I did it, I did it the third time, and I talked to Travis on the phone. I was telling him, I'm out in the woods. I'm going to spend the night out by myself. And I did it. I conquered the fear. I would spend the night at where Travis gets zapped. I mean, you're scared, but it's how you deal with your fear. I mean, everybody gets scared. That's a lie. You don't get scared. I wasn't scared. That's bullshit. Everybody gets scared, but it's how you handle your fear. And it doesn't. It's just part of life. I mean, they're out there. So.
Yeah, I had Stanton Freeman on, and he's, a UFO scientist, Westinghouse, NASA, all that happy nonsense. And I said to him, Stan, okay, so if they're there, what is it they're looking for? He says, I don't know, maybe they like the pizza here. It was kind of funny because I always ask myself, why the cloak and dagger? Why are they doing this? Why the cat?
What do you mean, why are they here? They've been here since how do you think Adam and Eve got here? They brought him here.
Oh.
They've been here all along.
You think that it's all the... Yeah. Mark Stublerek, and I know I'm saying it wrong, Mark. I am very sorry. In the chat, he's asking, you think they deliberately shot Travis down?
Yes. Yeah. I believe they wanted Travis. They took him, and... yeah. I believe that.
Yeah. And from what you described, you said it was almost like he was in a trance. Maybe it's because he was the more susceptible of all of you? Was there anything about Travis that you noticed about him? I don't know. I'm just asking because, why? I always ask these questions. Why him? Why not you? You were the baby. Really, if I were going to go...
we all wouldn't take it.
Yeah, really. And that's why I'm asking, these questions. Really, you guys know you weren't taken. You don't have any memories of being taken, right?
No, I wasn't taken at that time. Part of I know. I've been hit. Yvonne, you know who Yvonne Smith is?
Mm-hmm.
I've been seeing her, and I was taken in '93 is when I was taken. It came out
many
when she
years later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she wanted to get deeper into this,
out of that?
But I don't know. I've done it 5 times. I don't want to know if I'm going to keep doing it. She's found out enough stuff.
Yeah, I understand that feeling. And I'm kind of like Captain Kirk on this. My anger is what makes me who I am. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not an angry person, but if I don't remember something, I'm pretty bad at something that sucks so bad that I don't want to remember it. Do you know what I mean? If it's so bad I can't remember it, screw it. Yeah. If it's that bad I can't remember it, screw it and leave it alone. I don't want to know what it was. Because it can't be something good.
The day of the polygraph test was more scary than seeing Travis get zapped. I was more scared the day of the polygraph test than I seen Travis get zapped. Once we took off, when we were gone, the fear was gone once we saw it take off. I mean, we were only scared for, a couple minutes, but once we saw it take off, we got our courage back, and so...
Yeah, young guys do. You had that first shock and something that, there it is. There's E.T. And then all of a sudden you're running and say, hey, wait a minute. Everybody just stop.
Now, wait a minute. I wasn't running. Mike Rogers was driving, so the rest of us didn't have a choice.
Yeah, you were kind of like involuntary passengers, of course. So you're not sure you're going to pursue more hypnosis?
I'm not sure at this moment. I'm moving to Maine in the first of the month, and I have to find someone that I really trust to do it in Maine. So I don't know. I don't know yet. I just can't do this. It took me a year after I got to know Yvonne. Travis wanted me to get to know Yvonne and to do this. And so at first I wasn't going to do it. And then I finally, came around to doing it because I was kind of curious. And so the first time we did it was this past January. And it's all about Travis. And they videotaped it. And the video, the tape is kind of, I can't watch it because it kind of freaks me out. Because I kind of freak out in it, and I kind of scream a little bit, and Yvonne she jumps out of her seat a couple times to calm me down, and it puts me back at, when you're 17 again, and every time I watch it, I go back there again. Even if I watch anything that has to do with, if I watch Paranormal Witness to Sci-Fi, the one that they did that thing on us, I watch that, and I go back. I hear a certain song, I go back. I smell pine trees, I go back. If I can smell a pine tree, if I smell the woods, my mind will go back to the day it happened.
Yeah.
It's happened all my life.
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean, because we went to Atlantic City. No, we went to Wildwood for 4th of July, and it's the first time my son actually went to a fireworks show for 4th of July since he was blown up. And, of course, you're smelling the black powder from the fireworks, and he just turned white and started shaking because it brought him immediately right back there. You know, he was right back there, and he started fidgeting every time there was a pop or anything. His whole body just kind of did the shake. So yeah, in a way,
you shake his hand for me, and you tell him he's the hero.
Thank you. Yes, he is a hero. I made a little signature thing.
They're all heroes who go over there and protect our country.
Yes, they are. The man who stands the line, he's the hero, and it's not because he thinks he's being a big badass brave guy.
You know, they say the police department and the fire department are heroes. They're not heroes. People who go to war and protect our country, them are the heroes. You know.
Yeah. And you know, it is. This kind of thing scars you for life. Let me ask you, before this happened, and you know, we're all kids, and I don't know one 18-year-old or 17-year-old, including myself, who ever thinks that they're going to live past 35 or 40. I don't know why we all thought we were going to die. If I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken much better care of myself. But did you have any, like,
better track of everything?
Yeah. learned better coping things. Did you have anything that you were planning to do that got derailed by this?
Excuse, say that again?
Did you have any aspirations that kind of got derailed by this? Were you thinking of going into the service? Were you thinking of, you know, going to college, and things just became so confused, and then you started running that there's things that you originally thought you might want to do, but you weren't able to achieve because of this?
No, I achieved everything I wanted to. If I wanted something bad enough, I would get it. But I did go over. I became a truck driver because of this, so I could get out there and be by myself. Because I get along with myself pretty good, so you know, I like being by myself.
Yeah, because then you don't have to argue with people.
You know how many arguments I've been in with people about this? You know, I've been called names. I've been called. You know, 5 days we're called cowards for taking off and leaving. We were called murderers. We were called, you know, and then after it happened, they called us, you know, liars, and we were crazy. And I've been called every name in the book, you know, over this. That's why I stayed out of it for 35 years.
And it becomes tiresome trying to defending yourself with something like that, you know? And I can't imagine the other guys, except for you and Travis, everybody else has stayed pretty quiet about this whole thing, huh?
Mike was out with Travis for a while, and I don't know why Mike's not in it. None of my business, but Mike got out of it. And then John Goulette, me and him's done a couple of shows together, and we've done a couple of radio shows together. We've done a couple of conferences together. And Travis did a conference in Snowflake, Arizona a few months ago. That's when I went out there that's when we went out to the site that following Monday. But when we were in Snowflake, Kenny Peterson was supposed to come to the show, and he didn't show up. But, you know, some people can't do, you know, it's hard to get in front of people and talk about this, you know.
It is.
It was hard for me at first, but now it's like therapy, you know. It makes you feel better after you know, and then you hear other people's stories, you know, because I like to listen to other people's stories. And so you got something in common, because if this happens to you and you tell somebody who doesn't believe you, you know, they make fun of you, they laugh, they giggle, and you know what I mean. So,
yeah.
So anybody out there that's ever happened to, find somebody it's happened to them too,
and this is the thing, because you see, Barney and Betty Hill, they were an interracial couple when they had their event, and you know, the last thing they wanted was attention, because back then interracial couples was not something that was allowed with a lot of, people. So these were people that were reluctantly dragged into this. And back in 75, we're talking the wind down of Vietnam. The kids are all coming back. They're all screwed up. A lot of them have emotional problems. I would say a good portion, 30% of them, had drug addiction because of it. They came back because, they got them hooked on drugs over there and everything. So the time period was not a gracious time period for somebody to say, oh, and by the way, Travis, this big thing up in the sky blew him 40 feet into the air onto the ground, and then when we went back, he was gone, and we're pretty sure he took it, because that was not the time to be doing that. And we do have another question from Mark. Did the sheriff ever give you a reason why he thought you lied? Did he ever sit there and say exactly what it was about your story that didn't make sense, and what exactly was it about it? Is it just he didn't believe, or he doesn't believe in UFOs, or is he living in a cave someplace? What's his deal?
Well, it was, we lived in a Mormon community, and in the floor in the backseat were the outlaws anyway of town, so, and
right.
Besides, I mean, who's going to believe you in the 70s that you come up with a story like this? I mean,
right.
We saw a UFO. Travis was zapped. They're not going to buy that.
Mm-hmm.
It was the 70s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I had my first bad demonic, because I help people with real hauntings. And I was very shy about talking about it, even though Hans Holzer was big in unexplained phenomena. The Rhine Institute was just taking off. UCLA, Barry Taff, everybody was working on this. You didn't just stand there and tell people, hey, I saw this ghost, or I saw this, or I saw that. It was a time where people had real horror going on in there, just like during the Second World War. There's real horror going on. People are really dying in war. And then you got Vietnam, and people are really dying in war. And then somebody comes and says, oh, by the way, and you're like, look, we don't have time for this, So it wasn't a time for people to come out and say that. Mark is saying he thinks the Mormons only believe in humans or other planets, if he remembers properly. Were you raised Mormon?
No, I was raised Pentecostal, and Southern Baptist. My mother believes this is demonic. What's happening is from the devil. She prays for me every day that I will find God. But see, I don't believe in God the way she believes in God. I believe in Jesus. I believe Jesus existed. But I believe they've been here all along, and they put us here. And there's a reason why they put us here. We just don't know the reason.
I kind of have a hard time believing God put all his eggs in our basket, because if he did...
I don't believe there's one God. I don't believe there's one almighty,
Well, my point is, he really backed a loser, because the human race really sucks. As a whole, I find it... I find it very tedious to deal with the human race. You've made friends with Tom Reed, who is a wonderful, wonderful friend of ours, and he's just a really nice guy. And his brother Matthew is very much like you. It's something got dragged into, and Matthew is a lot more resistant about talking about it. He gets very nervous about talking about their event.
I get nervous. I still get nervous.
Yeah. Are you afraid?
Yeah, Thomas Reed's a good guy. He's listening, so you can say hi to him.
Yeah. Hi, Tom. How you doing? Yes, he is. He's a very nice man, and for all that you guys have been through, it's amazing that you aren't bitter. You're not bitter about this, or are you kind of like, I'm just going to leave everybody alone, leave me alone?
I'm not. At first I was kind of pissed off at Travis when this happened, you know, because my life went downhill for a little while.
Right.
But I'm glad.
Yes.
I'm glad all this happened to me. I wouldn't change one thing about my life. You know, there's a reason why all this happened, and someday I will know the reason.
You had mentioned earlier when we were talking the other day that even your wife doesn't believe any of this happened to you guys. She doesn't.
Well,
believe,
my ex-wife. I'm not married right
story.
now. I've been divorced for about 3
the
years.
ex-wife. He's not married,
we,
ladies. He's not married. just helping you out there,
though.
guy.
She's listening too.
Oh, okay, never mind. Never mind. He's attached. Forget it. Got to keep looking, ladies. She didn't believe it. Your ex-wife, that had to strain the marriage.
Well, she used to tell me not to say nothing to people. You know, we're going to go to somebody's house for dinner or something. You know, and she tells me before we get out the door, don't be mentioning, you know, anything about the UFO because people don't believe you. They think you're nuts. So just don't bring it up. You know, and she wouldn't bring it up.
They're saying in the chat they would never marry anyone who didn't believe in them, and I'm going to share a little story that I think you'll find amusing.
I agree.
When I met,
if someone does not believe it, don't get involved with them, because if you believe, it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
I was divorced.
You need that support.
Yeah.
You know. I
was divorced, and I met my husband now, Teddy. And, of course, we moved in together, and finally something was going on in my apartment, and I finally had to say, look, there's something going on in the apartment. And I thought for sure I was going to get my walking papers, and he pulls out his wallet and gives me a card. And here all this time he's been part of a paranormal group. Well, they weren't a paranormal group back then. They didn't call it a paranormal group. He was with a group who helped people with severe hauntings. And I said, when were you going to tell me that you did this? And he says, I didn't want you to think I was crazy. He says, when were you going to tell me that you could see these things? And I says, well, I didn't want you to think I was crazy. And we've been together for 35 years. So you're right. If somebody doesn't believe your story, that means it's not going to work. It's not.
Yeah, because if they think you lied about this, and they're going to think you lied about this and that, and they're not going to trust you because you know you lied about this. So no, it doesn't work. I mean, if you don't have somebody who supports you, you know, I wouldn't even tell them.
Right.
My third wife, I was married to her, and she never really knew the story.
Oh wow!
I never told her. Huh?
Wow. Do you have nightmares of it?
I have nightmares all the time. Especially after a show or after I talk, you know, on the radio show. I have nightmares tonight. You know, every time I talk about this, I have nightmares.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It all comes back into my dreams, and you know, and I'm back. I'm living it all over again.
Oh, that's sad. We're going to go to a break. We're almost done, running out of time. We're gonna. The first song we did was "Turn It Up" or something. It's one of Steve's favorite songs, and it struck me because Travis Walton's favorite song. When I asked him when he was coming on what song he wanted me to play, and he said "Against the Wind." So you both have picked songs that very much vibrate what happened to you. And it kind of tells people how you're feeling about it. So we're going to be right back. The next song is a song that was popular at this time, and it's Billy Swan, I Can Help. And then we're going to finish talking about this and talk about some evidence, because one of the big problems with this case was evidence. But Travis had said there is evidence that something happened at that spot, and nobody's interested in hearing it. So I hope everybody enjoys the song. We'll be right back in like 4 minutes.
Tired of people complaining that you play your music too loud?
Hey, turn it down, you freaking punks.
Well, turn up the volume and rip that sucker's knob off so you don't have to hear them bitch. GameCon Radio.
And that was Billy Swan. That was a song popular back then, very popular. Our guest is getting kind of tired, and I promised to cut him loose, but I wanted to ask you, what the heck were we asking? You don't believe in God or anything, so we're not going to get into that. But the trees, when they talk about evidence, there's no evidence, and Travis had said the trees, the growth has escalated. And you could see, because when they cut a tree down, you could see the rate of growth from the rings. But since 1975, the trees, they've developed more rings and the growth has escalated. Has he talked to you about that at all?
Uh-huh. Yeah, he's got proof that the trees grew faster after this happened, because you can tell by the rings. I'm not, into that or nothing, but I guess you can look at the trees and look at the rings of the trees, to tell you how old it is and stuff, and you can see from 75 to I don't know when, but they had a big forest fire there, so some of the trees aren't there no more, but one's still there.
Right.
The one with the rings, and for some reason that didn't burn. That's kind of weird. And there's proof, in the radiation. They found radiation. Huh?
They did find radiation there, right?
Yeah, on Mike's helmet. On the helmet, hard hat.
Right.
Some guy came up there when Mike. I wasn't out there when the posse was out there. I was hiding, but Mike said that a couple of guys came out there with a Geiger counter, and they did him first, and the other guys, and nothing popped up. And Mike said, "Wait a sec, I got the hard hats from yesterday. I got the hard hats with me, and they did it over the hard hats, and I guess it went off the scale and stuff. So, and then them guys just disappeared. Nobody knew who they were. They were there one for a second, and then they were gone. So nobody knew who they were."
Yeah, they're asking what would make a tree grow faster. Well, radiation mutates cells. That's why they use it to fight cancer. It actually attacks cells. So there's a very good chance that radiation would cause the trees to grow at a faster rate once they'd been exposed. It's not enough to burn them, but it was enough to do something to the cell structure of the tree. I want to thank you so much for coming on, and your book will be released later on this year, you think?
Yeah, in a couple months, yes.
And it's Broken Silence, One Man's Journey. The name is Broken Silence, One Man's Journey. And you can be found on Facebook. If they go to Facebook, I friended you, so you just look at my friends and find Steve Pierce, and Tom Reed is there too. And I got some pretty cool friends. You guys are all pretty cool guys. I really love you guys.
Well, Tom is a pretty cool guy. I'm an asshole.
Yeah. That's okay. And I want to thank you guys for coming. I want to thank Tom for introducing us. And God bless. I hope your book does wonderful. And I'm going to play another song.
Talking about Tom, his house, you were talking about haunted stuff. His house was haunted. The other day they were gone and doors were opening and closing. And I was, whoa, man.
Oh, wow.
I thought the front door opened. I thought they came home, And I heard the door open and close, and I looked out towards the door, and there was nobody there. And I went to the window and see if the car was out there, and so I locked the door and everything. And then it's happened a couple times. Me and Tom's in one of the rooms, and we're talking, and the door just closes by itself, it shuts. And
houses, people people stay with their houses if they love them. You know, you die, and not everybody goes to Disney World, and not everybody goes to the next level, and not everybody goes to some light, and sometimes they just hang out, and this is my house, I like it, you can stay here as long as you don't screw anything up, so as long as nothing bad's going, it's cool. I rather like knowing that there's someone here to keep an eye on things when I'm not around, but we'll have to get Tom on to talk about that.
Hey, Tom's a good guy, man, and I believe his story.
He is.
And plus he's like us. He passed the polygraph test, so that helps a little bit, I guess.
And that's the big thing. Everybody passed the polygraph. It's not like you could sit there and say everybody lied. I mean, one person might pass it, but when you've got everybody passing it, okay, the one took it many years later, but he still ended up passing it. You can't get 7 people to pass polygraph tests or 6 people to pass polygraph tests, and it just doesn't happen because, as I said, everybody remembers things differently. So that right there is a big factor in this case, and it's hard to dismiss that. And I think that it's just maybe people are afraid to admit there's someone out there besides us. Do you think that could be?
People are not ready for this. They're not ready for it. I mean, it would just totally freak them out of it. It'd freak them out. So they're just not ready for it. And
well, if they look like Travis said, yeah, they'd freak me out.
I
mean,
I'm getting kind of used to looking at them. They still scare me a little bit, but I'm getting used to looking at them. But I've only seen grays.
You've only seen grays. And where have you seen them? Where have you seen them?
You have to read my book and then put me back on. How's that?
I will absolutely. Let me know when that book comes out, and I will bring you on, because this is something that, to me, sounds like maybe they're keeping an eye on you, too.
Yeah, my family, too. So, well, anyway, thank you for having me, and you have a good evening.
Thank you. All you have to do is hang up, and people, we're still got another couple of minutes, and I have another song that was popular during that time, so just hang up the phone, and thank you so much for coming on.
All right, send me your address, and I'll send you a book, and you can read it, and then I'll go back on. We'll talk about the book.
Okay. That's cool.
All right, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Night-night.
Night.
That was very, very cool. What a nice man. And what I like about Travis and Steve is they're not out there like broadcasting, and they're not, I don't know the word I'm looking for, they're shy about explaining it all. I mean, you can't tell them that it didn't happen. They'll bark back, but they're not sitting there making it sound like it's the best day of their life that this thing happened, because obviously this wreaked havoc on their lives. Right, they're not publicizing themselves, and more often than not, they're stepping back and saying, okay, it happened, let's just leave it like that. But then they kind of drag it back out into the public. And, it's got to be scary to have this kind of thing going on, and you really don't know the reason. We were talking, and he was funny. He says, well, I don't believe in God, but I believe they've always been here. And I says, well, God created them too. I don't know why. And, there's so many theories out there that they're people from another dimension. They're people from our future. They are the future Earthlings coming back, trying to fix something that went terribly wrong. That's another theory. There's theories that they're from another galaxy, another system, and they're coming here and watching us. Or some people believe we're a petri dish. We're just an experiment. Some people believe that we're kind of like, as sick as it sounds, a parts department. When they need something, they harvest parts off of us or something, or DNA. And until they actually tell us what they're here for and why they've been watching us and why they've been collecting DNA and doing all the things they've been doing, I guess we're just going to have to speculate on it, and that's the fearful part. When you don't know what someone's motives are for what they're doing, that's the scary, scary part. So, it's an intriguing story, and unfortunately, it's something that you either believe it or you don't believe it, and like I said, I think skeptics very much, because I am a skeptic. Even with spirits, I'm a huge skeptic. I listen to stories, but I also remember when people are afraid, they kind of get things mixed up. But I want to believe that something's going on, and I want to know what it is, but I'm not ready to just accept everything that people throw at me. So that's the difference, you know? We've got another song that I'm going to play because we have a few minutes left. Another one that was very, very popular in 1975, I'm Sorry, by John Denver. And I kind of thought of this song when I heard the story initially. It's kind of, I'm sorry for all the crap that's going on Earth. I wish there's something I could do about it, but, you know, unfortunately, there isn't, so right now I'm more sorry for me, you know, so I hope everybody enjoys this next
There's
song.
No place like home. There's no place like home.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
This is Mo inviting you to visit me at my lair. Mo Banshee's Lair Visionary Talk Radio airs every Tuesday night live on GCRInternetradio.com. Tune in at 9 p.m. Eastern Time Zone. Topics A to Z, Mo Banshee's Lair on GCR Internet Radio. We're rocking your world.
Just try to stay out of my way. Just try. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
And welcome back to Mo Banshee's Lair on GCR. Next week we're going to have Malcolm Robeson on Robinson. Yeah, mine's Robertson. His is Robinson. He's a UFO investigator. He investigates unexplained things in England. I had interviewed him for a pre-recorded show, but it was the weekend of the tornadoes and over in Missouri, and evidently the show did not record. It was all screwed up. So I'm going to be re-interviewing him on Sunday morning, and then I'll play the interview with him on Tuesday, October 1st. Halloween is coming, and it's time for my rant about cemeteries. Please remember that cemeteries are places of rest for families and people that we love, and that weather and erosion and all Mother Nature belts at it can have a big effect on cemetery safety. Animals burrow holes, especially in the winter. They look for places to hide and sleep and hibernate in. Golfers will burrow in the ground, and you step in and you break an ankle. As wood and metal starts to fall apart in older graves that don't have concrete enclosements in the ground, the coffins can give way, your foot goes through, you break it. Another thing, 2 children last summer were killed when the tombstones fell on them because the ground was wet and they were climbing on them. Cemeteries are lovely places. They are meant to be visited. They are a place where we can find history, but they can also be dangerous if you're not careful. Another thing is, with all the young groups starting out and everything, remember something that TAPS and all these TV shows get permission to be on train trestles. They get the police involved to block traffic and stop trains on tracks so that they can do their recording and all that nonsense. That isn't true, but it's on there. And a few years ago, a young team went on a train trestle. The train came, and the leader of the team was killed because he couldn't get off the trestle in time. He threw his girlfriend down to the dirt. She broke her leg or something, but he ended up dying. It can be dangerous. You don't go into abandoned buildings. You can really end up sick. You can end up with hepavirus from mice and rats and droppings, and you can have lead poisoning, and you can end up with all kinds of what is it, I can't think, I'm brain dead, the stuff that falls from the walls and everything. You can end up ruining your health or getting killed. So please, if you're going to go out and play TAPS or Ghost Hunter, be careful and never ever go along. Make sure you have enough people with you. And I think tonight's show was amazing. I really enjoyed it. Yes, asbestos. Thank you, Mark. There's so many things that can go wrong in an abandoned building. Not to mention, even a cemetery, you're going in there late at night and somebody's dealing drugs. I always find the best time to go to a cemetery is during the day. That's when the burials took place. That's when people would visit their families. Thank you, Stanley, too. And then they die and they go into autopilot and they go and visit the same, grave. They go visit their wife's grave and stuff. Even though they're dead, they're going back there to visit a mother visiting a child. I mean, the things that go on in the dark in cemeteries, you can walk into some really dangerous things. And I always tell people when they say, what scares you the most? And I tell them living people. Living people scare me the most. I've never been, raped by a ghost. I've been hurt on a case and stuff, because bad people die and they don't become good just because they die. And you can have a very confused ghost, but the point is that human beings are much more scarier. And it can be really dicey going into these places. So talk to your kids. That's the biggie thing. If I don't do anything, parents, talk to your children. Make sure that they understand. Go with an adult. Make sure that they have multiple ways to get help. They're not alone. And this harassing and calling them names and stuff. Grandma did nothing to deserve being yelled at and called awful names. Dying does not mean you have the right to call some spirit terrible names just so you can get some kind of reading on a mechanism that was never designed to actually measure ghost activity. All this crap they use on TV, none of it was made for spirits. It was made to find hot wires in walls, to measure radon. But none of it was made for what these groups are using it for. It's all smoke and mirrors and all that. So please be very careful this October, as everybody decides they're going to go out and they're going to ghost hunt, which I hate that term, and so did Holzer. By the time he died, he said it was an unfortunate term that he created, but it was actually a title of a book. It was a title of a book. The Ghost Hunter. It was one of his first book. And when I talked to him, I said, what do you think? He says, it's an unfortunate term, and I'm sorry I created it, because now people take it literally. Ghost hunter, I'm going to hunt ghosts, and they've done nothing to deserve that. So everybody, Holzer, he was a great guy. He was a nice guy. He was a good guy. I liked Hans a lot. And with that, I'm going to say good night. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And stay safe out there, because ET is out there, and Grandma's ghost is out there, and good Lord, there could be Ted Bundy's ghost out there. So everybody be safe out there this Halloween, and God bless you all. I love you all. Good night.
Thank you for visiting me at my lair. You can always contact me at www.asylumsgate.com. Again, thank you for visiting, and God bless you and yours.
The opinions and views expressed in the following presentation do not necessarily reflect those of GCR Progressive Internet Radio Management, staff, or our affiliates.
Toto? I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Welcome to Mo Banshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio on GCR Progressive Internet Radio. Here, rocking your world.
And welcome to Mo Banshee's Lair on GCR Internet Radio. Tonight we have a spectacular show for you with a very, very nice gentleman. This is going to be one of those great Mo Banshee moments where I bring you someone from the UFO community who is a witness to the Travis Walton abduction case. Steve per se is on. He's in the side waiting. You all know how it works with me. I do a little crazy but news. I want to welcome everybody listening, and the show will be on podcast, and it will be on YouTube, and you can download it from the podcast tomorrow when you're ready. And spread the word. It's fall. This is the last week of September, which September just kind of flew by like a train wreck. And it's getting cold out, and all my listeners know I worry about animals. Animals, they're not weatherproof, and I guess you can forgive someone who's ignorant, but I really don't know anybody anymore that's ignorant and doesn't understand. Animals need adequate shelter, adequate food, they need water, they need care. And if you're not going to do that for animals, call the ASPCA, call the Humane Society, and give them up. Don't torture an animal. I'm very upset. We've got like 4 dogs that I've had on Facebook that the SPCA and different shelters have let me know about that were literally starved to the brink of death. One dog was tortured and starved, and every bone in its body was broke, and it had to be euthanized. There's no excuse for this. Anybody who can do this should be in a cold room in hell for the rest of eternity. There's no excuse for it, and somebody knew that these people did this to this dog. So please, try to keep vigilant. watch out for dog fights, and you'll be surprised they're starting to resort to putting them in box trucks and drive around cities and towns and let the dogs kill each other because the men don't have the balls to fight each other, so they fight animals instead. That's all animal fighting animal is. Thank you, Steve. They just don't have the brass to stand up against a man and fight, so they use animals, and it's disgusting. And I hope that people start to realize it's going on a lot. And Craigslist, there's a petition to stop giving away animals on Craigslist, because the animals on Craigslist are usually taken up by people who fight dogs. They're used as bait animals. Their dogs are taught to tear animals apart. Please, please, please be a voice for animals. Even if you don't like animals. My mother, she was Irish, and, we don't have money for animals, but you know what? That woman never, ever hurt an animal, never turned an animal out, and in the end, we ended up with every animal conceivable. If you don't want animals, that's one thing, but don't hurt them and don't allow people to hurt them. And please start teaching children about what they're doing so they stop. I mean, we're raising a generation of Jeffrey Dahmers. So, crazy but news, and I'm always amazed at it, but religion ain't free for parishioners or the church. Austria's Roman Catholic Church has learned its lesson. Mass is okay, mass texting is not okay. The diocese in southern city of Graz says it was found guilty of contriving Austria's telecommunications law by sending mass texts to parishioners who are overdue on membership fees. And in this mass text, everybody's name that is overdue was listed. So everybody in town knows who didn't pay their membership fees for the church. And so, this went out all over the place, and people went, what the heck, And anyway, the church is being fined $13,475 for complaints from 17,000 church members who were in arrears that received the text in everybody else's name. So the church, even though that may seem like a really good idea, it's probably not a good idea to mass text that everybody is in arrears in the church and list their names. This is a little bit disgusting and scaring. Naked and Scared. Haunted House welcomes new thrill seekers, a new attraction in Pennsylvania. Let me just double check to make sure everything's okay on the thing and everybody can hear me well. I guess everybody can hear me well. Anyway, this group, this Pennsylvania Scream Park theme is got a new attraction thing out, and what it is Shocktoberfest, a haunted scream park in Sinking Spring, PA, has added the attraction called Naked and Scared Challenge. And for $20, participants can experience the haunted house while being completely naked. And the idea is that they'll feel more vulnerable without clothing on. I don't know about vulnerable, but this is open to all kinds of problems that are going to come up. So this is going to be, after the first night, people, don't touch any of the walls, don't touch anything, just keep your hands to yourself, because you don't know who's been through there before you. Anyway, the guy, the Papa Smurf, he said he didn't mind when children walked up and called him Papa Smurf because he had the big bushy beard and all, but he didn't appreciate it when adults did it. And anyway, he ended up using, just staying in his house and not bothering with anybody much. But he just died, so they called him the Blue Man, and he just passed away. Bonkers for Conkers. England always amazes me. There's the best thing to parking, costing peanuts, is you pay your parking coins in chestnuts. A company that runs parking lots in England, Leeds and Manchester, is temporarily letting drivers pay with dark brown seeds that fall from the horse chestnut tree each autumn. you can actually put the seeds in the little meter on the street. And they were going to stop it Thursday, but now they think they're going to keep it up. And the company is saying that they want to raise awareness about carbon emissions from automobiles, and it plans to sponsor a forest to help offset carbon emissions. Don't ask me what these seeds have to do with carbon emission. I really have no clue. I don't know. Maybe they're going to feed a bunch of squirrels with them. I really don't know what they're going to do with them. But somehow they figure if they collect all these seeds, it'll help the environment. And this is kind of like, it was serious when it happened in New Jersey and New York, but sightings of a fighter jet over New Jersey and New York lit up the social media Monday afternoon. Anybody who's not in the clue, we have the UN meeting all week long. Bridges have been shut down. I had to go to a wake for one of my team. His father passed away, and our condolences to Scott Mara. God bless you. Your father was a great man. But we went in there and we had to get out before the bridges shut down, because once you get out of the town, you can't get back in, and they're searching everybody. So anyway, this fighter jet starts cruising all over the place on Monday, and they finally sent up a bunch of F-16s, and they intercepted 3 small planes and started bringing them down. And they said there was no bad intent. Nobody was going to do anything, but they just did it to be safe. And it was a great air show. Everybody was watching these planes all over the place, waiting for something to happen. And thank God nothing happened. And let's see. A few weeks ago, I warned everybody about the testicle-eating fish in Denmark. Well, it's in New Jersey, 10 miles from New York on our side. Man was a retired bus driver, Tom Boylan, was fishing, and he hooked a 10-inch long pacu, and they are related to the piranha. They are from the Amazon, and somehow they got into our waters. And the fish are known to make mistakes when people's testicles are in waters. They look like tree nuts, and 2 guys in New Guinea have died from blood loss after one of these little fish took their boys off. So no fun houses or scare houses in the nude, and no swimming in the nude anymore. We're going to stop all nudity. If you're going to be nude, do it in your bedroom where none of us have to be exposed to it. But that's the crazy butt. That's the crazy butt news. Our guest tonight has the dubious honor of being a witness to Travis Walton's UFO abduction event. Steve Persay, welcome to the lair.
Thank you. My name is Steve Pierce. Thank you.
Pierce.
For having me.
Sorry, Pierce. Okay.
It's Pierce.
Okay.
Pierce,
Steve
like a Pierce
Pierce.
ear.
Okay. You like that news, crazy butt news, right? It's always something. Do you swim in the riverbeds?
It's your show. It's your show.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's not a good idea, guy. Everybody's got to buy trunks, man. If they got teeth that can break a nut open, your boys are in big trouble, gentlemen. You were part of the crew that was clearing woods in Arizona with Travis Walton. You were the baby.
You got his name right.
And when I say, yeah, I've had him on before. Hey, it's 9:00 at night. And I just read some really crazy news. Anyway, you were a part of it. You were the youngest gentleman on it. And I want to say Kitty, because to me, you were, 17, 18 years old when this happened?
Yeah, I was 17, yes.
Oh, you were a baby. In my book, that's a baby. And I guess, it's something that has never ended for any of you, really. Even those of you who have opted to stay quiet about it and try to leave it behind, this story kind of keeps following you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it keeps following me. I try to get out and they just pull me right back in.
Yeah. You know, I always think of that song, Gordon Lightfoot, the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, where he says, "Does anybody know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours?" And, I mean,
you know, that's strange that you mentioned that song. That happened the day we took the polygraph test.
Really?
Yeah, it's sunk the day we took the polygraph test.
You know, you're sitting there and you're going through this, and I think time kind of becomes subjective when you're in the middle of something like this. And then it's been running Shocktoberfest for 22 years. Got the idea when he saw 4 teenagers watching the Discovery Channel show Naked and Afraid, where they put a man and a woman together to survive for 21 days with no food, water, or clothes. And he said people were genuinely scared, so he thought this would be a really good idea. His wife hates the idea, but he says he's going to keep going at it because most of the husbands he's talked to think it's great. Sure, they're going to get a look at, you know, naked women, you know. I think it's disgusting, and I guess the further we get along, the more backwards we become. What a bummer. Flushable wipes. Who hasn't been told, flushable wipes, use them and throw them down, it's sanitary, throw them in the garbage? Well, now, all over the entire country of the United States, these flushable wipes are being blamed for creating clogs and backup systems in all the source systems. They've been costing hundreds and millions of dollars all over the country because they have to unclog the pipes with pumps, and they sometimes have to go in and upgrade the pipes. So they're saying no more. Don't be, you know, using this. In London, SOAR officials reported removing a 15-ton bus-sized lump of wrongly flush grease and wet wipes, dubbed Flatberg. Don't ask me what that is, Flatberg. But anyway, they had to remove this out of the pipes. So now everybody is saying, please stop. Throw them in the garbage. Get one of those little doggy bags, you know, that you use for your dog, and throw them in that. But please do not throw them in the toilet. And you know what's going to happen with the doggy bags. They're going to go in the waters, and fish are going to swallow them, and they're going to choke fish and sharks and porpoises and everything else to death. So my answer to this entire problem is just make it illegal to have these wipes, you know, and call it good. So that's my answer to this entire thing. I thought they were a bad idea when they came out because of toilets, and it seems they're even worse than I thought they were going to be. A man shot to internet fame several years ago by appearing on Today to discuss a condition that turned him permanently blue. Paul Harrison, 62 years old, passed away Monday in a Washington state hospital. He was admitted last week for a heart attack. Evidently, 15 years ago, he started using this special silver paint preparation to treat a skin condition, and he was drinking a silver solution, a product consisting of silver particles suspended in liquid, and it permanently turned him blue. You can actually find his picture on the internet. Since he turned blue, he became a recluse. He was hiding because people were looking at him and calling him